Hi, I'm Rebecca Harris, and welcome to this edition of Faces and Places. We're very excited about an event that's going to be coming up, and we're at Fort Mitchell today with Tommy Boswell. Tommy, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm retired government worker here in Russell County. I was sheriff for 23 years and worked with the Sheriff's Department 37 years. Now I do a little bit of insurance adjusting and jail consulting and that kind of thing, but I've always, my whole life, been a student of local and state Alabama history. And part of the things that I do is I'm on the Historical Commission and the Bicentennial Commission, and I also participate in kind of operations of this facility here.
Well, it's so important for us to keep the history alive and to educate young people about it. And the event that y'all have coming up is going to be fun. It'll be fun for the whole family, so we're really excited about that. But I want you to tell me a little bit about the everyday workings of this museum that we're at today.
Well, this was developed a lot with private firms, of private money, private sources, and also with some government money for grants and things like that. And whenever I talk, the first question anybody has is, what is this and why is it important?
And let's talk about where it is.
Okay, it's on 165 outside of Phoenix City, about 5 miles south of the 431 intersection on 165. And it's here because it was of several parts of our history happened to cross here, and that caused several important events to be here. And so we're able to look at a number of Russell County's events by this one site.
It's so important to bring your children out to visit. And, you know, I haven't been here except, well, one time a long time ago, but y'all have done so much since I was here, and I'm so excited about seeing it all. But I know that this is very, very dear to your heart because history is so important to you. So tell me a little bit about why it's so important for us to support this project out here.
Well, the first thing that happened, of course, was the Federal Road, and then the War of 1812 being a staging point for the First Creek War. But then, because of the Federal Road, there were a number of important people who traveled through this area during the early days. For example, the Marquis de Lafayette, who was the Frenchman who was George Washington's good friend who helped us with our revolution, toured here about 1824 and 25. Aaron Burr, who was Vice President of the United States, killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel in Washington, and then hid out in southwest Alabama, and he was arrested and brought through here on that same Federal Road. Also, a number of Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, the Baltimore lawyer, came down here trying to mediate the trouble between the settlers and the Indians, and visited here at Fort Mitchell for a number of times. Then after the First Creek War, the Native Americans were rounded up and brought here and then transported over the Trail of Tears to Oklahoma, where they are today. Following that, it kind of was abandoned as a military post, but then during the Civil War, they built an encampment here and trained soldiers, volunteers who fought in the Civil War, and they trained them before shipping them to Virginia and out west also. So it's been an important location for several reasons, all during Russell County's early history.
So Tommy, thank you for allowing us to come out and visit with you today. And I'm sure if you want to know any more about the history of Russell County, you can talk to Tommy Boswell. So now we're going to be talking with Naomi Elliott. And Naomi and I have done a lot of projects together during the holidays.
Yes, we have.
Yes, and I can always depend on you. Naomi is an elected official for Russell County. Tell us a little bit about what you do in your day job.
I'm elected to be the Russell County Revenue Commissioner. Been doing that for the last 15 years. And so I collect property taxes, and then I do volunteer work. I volunteer with Russell County Historical Commission as well as Relay for Life Cancer Society, and with my church and and I'm a member of the Bicentennial Committee.
I know you're
A few
very,
things.
very busy, and I know how long it takes to plan an event like Pioneer Days. So I just want to thank you for all your hard work in advance. I've heard that it's a fabulous event. I haven't been yet, but I'm coming this year.
Well, we'll be happy to have you, and sorry you've missed the other years. But we have been doing this for several years. Of course, the Russell County Historical Commission is a nonprofit, and we have very little funding that we can depend on. So we do fundraisers to try to keep this facility operating. Of course, the county has done a great job in recent times of helping us with certain projects and just the operation.
So
But
are there other events other than Pioneer Days?
there are other events. We usually do 2 large events each year. We do one in the fall, which we call the Blacksmith Expo, and then we do this one that we're about to do called Pioneer Day in the spring. And we have picked April for our month to do that. Usually the 3rd weekend in April, we do the Pioneer Day.
So what does the Pioneer Day look like?
Well, there's just all kind of activities going on, and we've tried to add different events to our different demonstrations, I should say, to our event. And this year, we're happy to say that we are doing the quilt show, the contest with that, and we have a young lady by the name of Erica Franklin who works with horses a lot. She's very interested in horses, and she's pretty much an expert in several areas there. And she's going to be coming to us this year, and she's going to do a plowing demonstration with a team of horses. And we'll have a schedule, a time schedule for that, hopefully, that she'll be able to do that.
Well, that sounds great. What else are you going to be doing?
And we were very fortunate this year that we're going to have the world-renowned folk artist Butch Anthony with us.
Wow.
And he'll be displaying some of his artwork. And hopefully we're going to have his little traveling museum here as well that he has. And he will probably demonstrate some while he's here for us. So we've been really, really fortunate to be able to have him with us this year. And then, of course, we have the normal things that we traditionally, or the traditional things that we have. Of course, the blacksmithers will be here doing their demonstrations back at the fort in their blacksmith shop. And then we have people who come and do wood lathing work on an old wood lathe that they would have had back in the 1800s. And then, of course, we've got many things to see that are here all the time. We have the log cabin that was built back in the 1800s, and it was relocated here. And it's actually the log cabin of Colonel Crowell's family, and it's here on site. And we have the carriage house, and the carriage house is really interesting. It has just many different wagons and carriages, and we have an actual stagecoach that we'll have out on site that day that people can make their pictures around and in if they would like to. And we have a building that's called the Tavern, which is really just an eating place, and we have our gift shop there. And we hope people will go in to that and visit the gift shop, and they can purchase sweet treats, homemade sweet treats and that kind of things. And then we've got all kind of vendors coming, and we will have food vendors as well. And we're going to have live music on the porch of the tavern, and a lot of people locally know John Boy's story, and he's going to be playing for us.
That's good.
And we have a couple of people that are members of our historical commission, and they normally sing and play for us.
All right, so on the actual day of the event, tell me a little bit about what families need to do to prepare to come to it.
Well, they just need to come. The event's going to start at 9 o'clock, and they will just the admission fee is $5 per.
So they don't need tickets in advance or to make reservations?
They do not need
Okay.
tickets in advance, but it is a $5 entry fee. Children 10 and under are free.
Okay.
And it's $5 per person, but no family over $20.
Okay.
So
do
it's
you
an
recommend
inexpensive.
that they bring folding chairs?
Most of the time they're moving around, but since we're having some music a little bit different this year, they may want to bring a folding chair if they would like to sit for a while and listen to music. They may want to do that. But they just need to come and dress appropriately for the weather that day, and we just look forward to having a great day and hope everyone will come out and join us.
And you'll have food trucks here?
We'll have food vendors.
Food trucks, live entertainment, all kinds of demonstrations, and just
craft vendor,
a full day of
vendors.
fun. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the quilts. We're going to have Carol Bradshaw come and talk to us about the quilts. And Naomi, thank you so much for telling us about this. I know that it's taken a lot of work for you to do this, and again, I want to thank you for that.
Well, we thank you for having us, Rebecca. We enjoyed it.
There's going to be all kinds of exciting things going on throughout the day for Pioneer Days, but Carol Bradshaw is here with us today to talk to us about quilting. I've always loved quilts. My grandmother always made sure that we had a quilt on every bed in our house. So I'm excited about these beautiful quilts that you have. Is this the first quilting event that you are going to have associated with Pioneer Days?
This is the first judged event for Pioneer Days. We've had some displays before, but this is the first time that we've ever had ribbons given and people from all over the area submitting quilts.
That's great. I know for a little while it seemed like it was a dying art, but now it's become very, very popular again. I know quite a few people who that's their whole life right now is making quilts. So it's evolved in all different kinds of quilts. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, we have several categories, small, medium, and large, and we'll also have some vintage quilts that people have had in their attics and basements for years, and we'll get to see them. We have people submitting quilts that are traditional quilting, like you've seen your grandmothers do, putting little pieces together and making beautiful designs. We also have some fabric art, and we have people who teach fabric art and also quilting that are professionals, that this is their life work, and the quilts are going to be spectacular, some like you've never seen.
Oh, that's amazing. It's such a beautiful heirloom to pass down through your family. Something that I've always been curious about is if you have a quilt, how do you preserve that and make sure that nothing happens to it?
Well, there are a lot of people that'll tell you a lot of different things, but generally it's don't put it in a cedar chest where it touches the cedar, because cedar emits oil, and will discolor the quilt. You don't put it in a plastic bag. And so when we have quilts submitted, we have them submitted in pillowcases rather than bags, so that nothing will happen to them. You put new quilts in washing machines and dryers, because the fabric that we use now is really substantial fabric. But the old ones, you may have to put it in a bathtub and soak it, and then put it on a sheet and take it out and let it dry on the lawn, so that you won't pull it apart.
Wow, that's important to know, because I know that a lot of people would think that it's okay to put it in a cedar chest. What about folding it? Is it better to fold it, or is it better to hang it?
Well, when you're storing a quilt and you fold it, you need to take it out at least every 6 months and refold it in different places. If you look online, you can find some places that will show you how to fold on the bias, so that your folds won't show as much.
Okay.
And even when I put one on a bed, I turn it and fold it in different directions so that it won't have creases in it.
Well, that's great to know. I'm looking at all these beautiful quilts right here, and I see a variety of them. Can you tell me a little bit about these?
Yes, this one is considered quilt art, and the lady that showed me how to do this is going to submit some that are really unusual. They look like pictures more than they look like quilts. This one is a t-shirt quilt, and we have a lot of questions about preserving t-shirts in quilts. And I put this one together to show a lot of different things that I had done in school. And so my school T-shirts are on here, and my research project was done with the Smithsonian. That's on here. And you can do anything. I'm going to do some for my grandchildren that show their sports that they participate in.
That's awesome. It's something they can always keep.
That's right. And they can put it on their bed and show their friends. This is traditional piecing. These are bright colors that you don't see in old quilts. You mostly see these in the more modern quilts, but the fabrics that we have now lend themselves to either. You can still buy reproduction quilts from the Civil War and make some really antique looking quilts, or you can make some that your children will just have a fit over because they're so bright and pretty.
Now, what about the patterns? I know there's so many different varieties of patterns. Where do you get the patterns for the vintage ones?
Well, there are a lot of places. Quilt shops are your best bet. We have 3 quilt shops locally. The Sunday Best Quilt Works in Ellerslie, and So Much Fun in Columbus, and Stitch Therapy in Auburn. And they all carry really nice quilt patterns, and they can also advise you about, what fabrics to use with them, and they can also get other patterns if they don't have what you're looking for.
Well, that sounds great. Well, Carol, thank you so much. And I'm sure that if you have questions about quilts, you can talk to Carol on Pioneer Day.
Thank you.
Well, I know I sure have enjoyed being out here at Fort Mitchell today, and I'm looking forward to Pioneer Day, and I hope you'll make plans with your family to come on out and join us. And thank you for joining us today on Faces and Places, where you never know whose face you'll see or which place will be.